two white Republican women abused Biden in a way that Al Green did not do to Trump, and they did not get censured.
And I watched there through this speech as Marjorie Taylor Greene wore her hat. That's a violation of the rules. And the speaker didn't do anything about that. Now, we both feel outrage.
I think the argument from a lot of people who are upset with you is that Democrats cannot continue fighting in this way. It's as if you're playing football, and when I say football, I'm being British, soccer, and you're playing two teams and the other team keeps picking up the ball and running with it, and you insist we will carry on dribbling. You will lose in every occasion. At some point, you have to adapt to your circumstance.
In this video, Mehdi Hasan destroys Representative Jim Himes for defending GOP double standards. Mehdi Hasan just went off, and honestly, for good reason. He confronted Jim Himes over this ridiculous Democratic habit of playing nice, while Republicans constantly trample over every rule and get away with it. Mehdi pointed out how two white Republican women, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, heckled Biden during his State of the Union, something far more disrespectful than what Al Green did to Trump. Yet somehow Al Green was punished and they weren't. And that's where Mehdi hits Himes with the real question. Why do Democrats keep acting like decorum matters when the GOP has zero interest in playing fair? It's that same tired, will take the high road mindset that ends up looking like weakness. So make sure to watch till the end to see how Mehdi Hasan destroys Representative Jim Himes for defending GOP double standards.
I think there's a lot of ways to fight righteous battles. Think of the civil rights movement. Malcolm X was part of that. Stokely Carmichael, fairly radical, right? Martin Luther King, criticized by radicals for being way too accommodating and moderate. You know who else was important? John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Baines Johnson. I think it's a mistake to get into the question of, do you want to be John F. Kennedy or do you want to be Malcolm X? All of those elements are really important. But I'm going to acknowledge that focusing on decorum is the wrong thing to do. I probably should have said the rules. And I'm going to acknowledge that rules and laws are different. But they are alike in the way that if we are to live in a society of laws and rules, we have to take off the table that I can break a rule or a law simply because I have strong conviction. This is why a young man murders the CEO of United Healthcare. He had strong conviction. This is why, to bring up another potentially sore topic, too many people seek to justify the extremely aggressive, brutal war on Gaza because of the horridness of the murder of 1,200 Israelis.
Those are killings and crimes we can disagree. Al Green saying the president has no mandate is not in the same moral or political universe.
You see, you're lawyering me here because it's not what he said that matters. He took a decision consciously to break a rule. And of course I'm not going to sit here and say that that's the same as a law against murder.
You say you voted against Joe Wilson, to censure Joe Wilson.
Yeah.
That was, 15 years ago. In the last 3 years, we had Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert repeatedly, abusively interrupt the president. Did you vote to censure them?
So the censure votes have not been about behavior. They've been about speech. They went after Adam Schiff. They went after Rashida Tlaib. They went after, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
For like, Marjorie Taylor Greene stood up and screamed at Biden in a way that Al Green did not do. That's not why she was called to censured. That's what I'm asking. Did you censure her for what she did at a State of the Union?
Aren't we outraged? Well, so remember,
a lot of people are upset about the double standard. An elderly black man is removed from the House and censured. Two white Republican women abused Biden in a way that Al Green did not do to Trump, and they did not get censured.
And I watched there through this speech as Marjorie Taylor Greene wore her hat. That's a violation of the rules. And the speaker didn't do anything about that.
This is where the conversation really exposes Himes' blind spot. He starts by trying to draw this sweeping moral parallel, saying that if people justify breaking rules out of conviction, it's the same logic that could justify something as horrific as murder or even the war in Gaza. That kind of argument just collapses under its own weight. He's taking a narrow act of protest. Al Green standing up to a president who was literally undermining democracy and lumping it in with acts of violence. It's overblown and Mehdi immediately calls him out for it. Mehdi's point is clear. You can't pretend all rule breaking exists on the same moral scale. There's a difference between defying decorum to speak truth to power and committing an actual crime. But Himes keeps retreating to this idea that rules are rules, as if moral conviction has no place in politics. It's the same kind of procedural obsession that lets Republicans tear through norms while Democrats tie their own hands in the name of principle. Then Mehdi brings up the perfect example. Himes voted to censure Joe Wilson for heckling Obama years ago, but didn't do the same when Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert heckled Biden multiple times. That contrast really says it all. The Democrats police their own while the GOP doesn't even pretend to. And when Himes tries to claim the censure votes were about speech rather than behavior, it sounds like an excuse, like he's trying to lawyer his way out of admitting there's a double standard.
Now, we both feel outrage. Outrage that Marjorie Taylor Greene was not held to account by the speaker who held Al Green to account. Why do we feel outrage? Because they refuse to police our own, and it therefore follows logically, correct me if I'm wrong, that we should celebrate the fact that we are willing to police our own.
No, I think the argument from a lot of people who are upset with you is that Democrats cannot continue fighting in this way. It's as if you're playing football, and when I say football, I'm being British, soccer, and you're playing two teams and the other team keeps picking up the ball and running with it, and you insist we will carry on dribbling. You will lose in every occasion. At some point, you have to adapt to your circumstance.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you celebrate the breaking of rules and laws. So what do we do?
Not celebrate. It's just vast majority of your colleagues did not vote to censure Al Green. You did. You didn't have to censure him. You could have said, I wouldn't have done it, but you didn't have to vote to censure him with all those Republicans, all those authoritarians, all those MAGA cultists.
I believe that when it comes to rules and law, contexts matter a little bit, but not a lot. Again, how do I answer somebody who says you voted to condemn Joe Wilson, but not Al Green? Law, you believe that the rules don't apply to your side. That would certainly be the common person's understanding of this.
I think
and there's not a terrible good answer to that.
I think you have a good answer, actually. I think you yourself have given the answer in the past. Let me I went through your Twitter for the last year.
God bless
Here's what you've been saying about Donald Trump. You said he's betrayed our democracy. He's taking us into a constitutional crisis. He is, quote, breaking our democracy. He is dismembering our democracy. These are all your words about what Trump is doing. I don't think anyone thinks Barack Obama was doing that. George Bush, I have many criticisms. I think he's committed war crimes in Iraq, but I don't think he was trying to dismember American democracy. Trump is sui generis. I think that is your argument that you can make to the imaginary person who says, why did you do that but not this? You yourself have admitted that he is betraying our democracy, dismembering our democracy. If he's dismembering our democracy, then why on earth are you worried about the rules of what you do in the middle of his speech? A speech, by the way, in which he's insulting you to your face. He's calling you radical left lunatics. He's making racist jibes about Elizabeth Warren. You want to talk about politics? You guys look weak. The guy's bullying you and you're just sitting there quietly. Al Green looks strong.
So let's stay on the question that you asked, because I agree with that. I don't think anybody thought that the collective response at that speech was a good one. That's a different issue. But there are two answers to your question. Number one, we will cherish the rules more than they do because we are better than they are, and that matters. Every social movement in history that has actually achieved its ends has held themselves to a higher standard. Anti-apartheid, civil rights, you name it. We hold ourselves to a higher standard. That is our core strength.
They broke the rules.
Of course they broke the rules. A series of questions. You read my tweets. I am not at all confused about how dire the threat of Donald Trump is.
I appreciate that, which is why I don't get the disconnect.
Mehdi, our healthcare system in this country is probably responsible for tens of thousands of deaths. You could even characterize our health insurance system as murderous because of that.
Yes.
People are denied care. Why should I object to the young man who decided that he would break the law against murder to kill a healthcare executive?
This exchange really shows Mehdi at his sharpest. Himes tries to twist the logic again, arguing that Democrats should celebrate policing their own, that it proves moral superiority. But Mehdi doesn't buy that at all. He pushes back hard, saying Democrats are basically playing by rules that the other side burned years ago. It's like watching one team play soccer while the other side picks up the ball and runs it into the end zone. And Democrats still think sticking to the playbook will somehow earn them respect. Mehdi also dismantles Hymes's whole rule of law defense by using his own words against him. He literally quotes Hymes's past tweets where he accused Trump of dismembering democracy and betraying the Constitution. Then Mehdi asks the obvious question: if Trump really is that dangerous, why on earth are you worried about decorum during his speech? Why not show some backbone when he's insulting you to your face? That moment captures everything. Mehdi doesn't just question Hymes's logic, he questions his courage. Hymes tries to salvage it by saying Democrats are better because they hold themselves to higher standards. And sure, that sounds noble, but it's the same logic that's been holding the party back for years. When one side fights dirty and the other side insists on staying clean even while being attacked, the outcome isn't fairness, it's defeat. Mehdi calls that out without hesitation, and honestly, it's the kind of confrontation Democrats need more often.
Answer that question
Very
for
simple.
me.
A, it's against the law.
Yes.
B, murder is always morally wrong. I don't think standing up to heckle a president who is trying to dismantle democracy, calls himself a king, engages in white supremacist rhetoric, is targeting the media, is targeting political opponents, and mocking you all in the process. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's not it's nowhere near the same thing as murdering a healthcare executive.
Well, but they're on a spectrum here. You're making the argument that some rules are stronger and more compelling
I'm saying
than others.
Do not murder is not the same thing as do not stand up and object to a man that you and I both think is a threat to democracy. We agree on that, right?
We
agree that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy.
But do you agree that all rules that are not obviously unjust, and the rule of House decorum or whatever it is not obviously unjust, that all rules that are agreed upon by both sides or whatever...
I'm not even objecting to the censure. Like you said, the rule was broken, censure. What I'm objecting to, and what a lot of activists are doing, is that you didn't need to vote for it. The 10 of you did that for some positioning or to send a message that we are, we believe in decorum, and that's what's bothered a lot of people.
Not that we believe in decorum, but that we believe in the rules and that we seek to establish a dramatic difference between the Republicans who will move in lockstep, not hold their own people, but that we think and that we take the claims of rules seriously.
I think Al Greene established the dramatic difference in showing that he's got some kind of energy in him. And you've even lost Bill Kristol on this. Lifelong neoconservative, supporter of centrist Democrats. He came out in favor of Al Greene. He wrote, "Am I alone in feeling that it was good to see some fervent conviction and righteous indignation? Am I the only person who was actually kind of happy to see, in a sea of Democrats waving little paddles with lame messages, someone literally standing up to Trump?" He's right, isn't he?
He's right. But you're now making a different argument. I think I started this conversation by saying, I think I even support what Al Greene did. The question is, was a censure right? And was it right for me to participate? That's the question. So Bill Kristol didn't go on to say, and by the way, Al Greene did not go on to say, please don't censure me. In fact, he welcomed it.
From Republicans, not from his own colleagues.
Because he understands that
I feel like you're trying to have your cake and eat it, Congressman. So then why didn't you stand? Let's take your argument to its logical conclusion.
Yeah.
Why didn't you stand up, object to Trump in the same way, and then vote to censure yourself?
Well,
I mean, that's where your argument's taking you.
That's a sophomoric argument. I mean, I have thought a lot about how I could have done more. And by the way, here's what's, I think, driving the activist community. It's not detailed arguments about the nature of civil disobedience. There's an immense amount of fear out there that I share. And by the way, I don't just share it. I own it more than most because I was one of the last people out of the chamber when Donald Trump sent a murderous crowd to end the Congress and to kill us. So I will give up nothing to nobody on the issue of understanding the fear.
By the end, Mehdi just shuts down the whole false equivalence that Hymes keeps trying to draw. He makes it clear standing up to a president threatening democracy is not even remotely close to breaking moral law. It's not violent, it's not anarchic, it's a moment of conscience. And that's exactly what Hymes can't seem to grasp. Hymes keeps circling back to this rules are rules mindset, as if every rule deserves equal weight, regardless of context. But Mehdi's right, that kind of thinking is what's held Democrats back for years. You can't keep preaching about integrity while the other side burns every rule book they touch. Al Greene's defiance wasn't chaos, it was courage. What's striking here is that Himes knows how bad Trump was, he's tweeted it himself, yet he still tries to defend the symbolic act of censuring someone who stood up to him. That's why Mehdi's pushback hits so hard. It's not just about Al Greene, it's about Democrats who confuse civility with strength and end up looking afraid to match conviction with conviction, and that's exactly where the bias creeps in. And speaking of biases, are you getting tired of biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and the other says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story, so you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.